In this video, we're brewing together with Tetsu Kasuya using his new metal dripper from Hario. Welcome, my name is Patrick Rolfe and this is Coffee with April. Now, last week we launched a video using the new double wall metal brewer from Tetsu Kasuya via Hario. Those of you that watched that video knows that we had some challenges. And what we wanted to do is that we wanted to come up with a part 2. So if you haven't watched part 1, do that first and then come back, watch this video. Now, in this video, what we're doing is that one, we've talked to Tetsu again. Tetsu has been kind enough to share a video with us of him brewing one of our coffees. Actually, the exact same coffee that I'm gonna be brewing in this video today, which you're gonna be seeing later. Now, we did this because, as you know, we've been challenged in terms of flow rate. We've been getting very, very long brew times, just trying to figuring out how to use this brewer. And now, because of Tetsu's advices, we're able to more or less replicate identically what he did in terms of his brewing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna brew the same way he brewed our coffee in Tokyo, right here in Copenhagen. We're gonna taste it, we're gonna measure it, and we're gonna share with you guys how we like that cup of coffee. Now, before I start brewing, I just wanna thank Tetsu for being super transparent and helpful in this process, giving myself a much better understanding for what is intended with his brewer.
Hi Patrick, thank you for your good beans. This one, I will try next time. Now I will brew your Gesha Village with my stainless dripper, and I will show you how to use my stainless dripper for light roast coffee. Maybe if you use this dripper with the traditional way to brew, it might take too much time. So I will brew with my correct brewing method. So usually I use 20 grams of coffee. And with this dipping, number 10. Medium force. Do not measure the amount of water. I will measure the amount of coffee. Then 20 grams of coffee, and it depends on your preference. But this time I will make the 240 or 250 grams of coffee. So maybe the total amount of water I pour will be 280 or something. But this time it's gonna be special. For this dripper, I recommend to hold the dripper with my hand and then start. Pour a little amount of water, so no need to extract too much in the blooming time. So now, for the first pour, it is important to reach every coffee grounds, and then this is like a close filter drip in the Japan market. There are so many Japanese masters. So this time my target amount of coffee will be 240 or 50. So within 2 minutes or 2 minutes 30, the amount of coffee, my target is 100 or something. So no need to pour too much at the beginning. So now the time is 2 minutes, but the extraction is just 45, but do not worry. And then now pour strongly, gradually. The water is usually stuck at the latter stage, so you have to use the water level and water pressure with higher level of water, and higher water level. So you should pour strongly to get higher level. So the water flow rate can keep the faster. And then now 250. Finish. And the time is 3 minutes 50. Not too much. Even if we use the light roast, like your coffee, we can brew the coffee correctly or deliciously. I'm not sure there is a word. Okay. Good. And with your coffee, or like your coffee with the light roast coffee, the texture gonna be more rich or heavier texture. So the flavor is really floral and complex. 華やか。
フローラルですね。
But you can get more rich texture, so the coffee's impression gonna be different. Please try it. And if you have any questions, let's discuss. Okay. Okay. Bye bye.
So again, what I'm about to do now is somewhat replicate of what Tetsu did with the same coffee in Tokyo. Now, we're using wash process Illubabor varietal from the Gesha Village farm in Ethiopia. Funnily enough, we both have the same grinder. So we're grinding it on a Ditting Sweet Lab. He was grinding it on 12 in Tokyo. We're grinding it on 12 in Copenhagen. Now, it's two different burr sets, two different grinders to some degree, so they're not going to grind up 100% identical. We know that, but it's more fun to use the same setting, so that's what we're doing. Now, water temperature sits at 94 degrees Celsius, which is the same that Tetsu is using in Tokyo. Now, he didn't say that in the video, but we asked him about it afterwards. Now, for sure, we know that water is still different and water temperature is not everything, it's also the mineral content. So that's the one variable we're not going to be able to replicate 100%. That being said, let's brew some coffee. Now, we're using 15 grams of very coarsely ground coffee, or medium to coarse. We're dosing it directly into the brewer. As Tetsu mentioned, and we already done before, is that what we do here is that we actually measure the beverage weight rather than the water we pour on the coffee. Now, there's a few reasons for that, and we go through that after we brewed or finished this brew, right? So, step one here, start pouring some water on the coffee. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start the timer. I'm gonna start pouring. The first pour is just tiny, tiny center pours in the center of the bed. And it's important here to make sure that you don't pour too much water. So one of the things we can see in Tetsu's video is that you don't want the water level to actually be higher than the ground coffee before 2 minutes. So what we're doing here is we're literally just doing tiny, tiny center pours. Now, if you were to do circle pours, if you were to do a larger pour, this brewer would clog up more or less directly. Now, Tetsu says in the video that he's pouring these kind of smaller pours up for 2 minutes. And at that point, he actually wants the amount of beverage to be 100 grams. But when he uses our coffee, he only gets it up to 45, which he doesn't say is a massive issue. But there's definitely a difference from the coffees he normally is working with. And we assume that's simply because it's a different roast degree, right? So a lighter coffee is definitely gonna need a bit more time to go through than a darker one. We also found in all stages of the pours that actually tilting the brewer is gonna help you to get that water through a tiny bit faster. Now we're coming up at 2 minutes here, a few seconds left, and we're actually at 45 grams of liquid, which is more or less identical to the Tetsu brew. Now, what Tetsu started to do from here was to pour quite aggressively in the center. And you basically just want to pour quick, and you just want to fill up the whole brewer. Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky to hold it because it's getting really warm. So I need to change my grip, lift it up, and I'll just continue my pour. Now, the target beverage weight here that we're looking for is about 240 to 250. And you can see here that I'm also tilting the brewer, trying to make sure that that coffee goes through as fast as possible. And now the more I pour, the faster the flow, right? So I'm gonna put that down for a few seconds. Put the kettle back, and we'll lift this back up. And at 3 minutes, I'm actually at 260, which is a bit more beverage weight than he recommended, but still within the kind of scoop. So this is how you brew faster. Now, the real question is it tasty? Now, when we're seeing Tetsu's videos, and we're obviously looking into how have we been brewing coffee in the past year at April, there's a few things that are still quite interesting. Again, we need to remember it's a metal filter, so we can see there's quite a lot of sediment in the cup, meaning it's quite cloudy, right? It's not going to be the cleanest cup of coffee. It's not going to have the smoothest mouthfeel, right? Which are two elements that we usually really prefer in a cup. Now, secondly, pouring structure here. What we do is we pour in the center of the coffee, and we pour in the center continuously. The challenge with this is that we just don't have the water go through the coffee evenly throughout all stages of the brew. Now, is this going to be able to make a tasty cup of coffee? We don't know. We're going to taste it. And after we taste it, done a bunch of measurements, we're going to come back to you guys and share it. We're back, we measured, we tasted, we discussed, we brewed a bunch of more cups, trying to get our head around this. So, what we did now is that we followed to the best of our abilities, the parameters, the brewing variables that Tetsu did in Tokyo. And we managed to then get more or less the exact same brew time that he did, which is great. However, when measuring the TDS of these cups, we're basically ending up around 1. Which is a very weak cup of coffee. So we weren't very happy in terms of taste in regards to what came out of it. But then what we did is that we tried some other grind sizes. And the thing is, the second we go on a finer grind size, then what happens here, keeping the same pouring structure, what happens here is that even though we replicate the pouring structure, we get very long brew times again. Very long brew times being above 5 minutes. So I think the key lesson here is that we're sure there is a sweet spot somewhere between strength and grind size, and then also brewing time. Of course it is, right? But one of the challenges here is that you basically in the beginning of the brew extract or get out quite a lot of sediments, which you can see clearly in the cup. Then on top of that, you're not making sure that all of that coffee is evenly saturated from the very beginning. In fact, it takes quite a lot of time. Then what you do at 2 minutes when you pour your kind of aggressive center pour, which you really only do to be able to speed up the flow rate. That's the reason. It's not a taste thing. Is if you don't do it, the water will not go through the coffee. So you kind of have to. This is causing quite a lot of very watery looking liquid to go through the brewer, which gives us the impression that we're kind of diluting the coffee more than anything else. Now, can you brew tasty coffee with this? Yes, you can. We've been able to do it, but the brew times we're looking at then is about 4 to 6 minutes. And that's 4 to 6 minutes of your kind of full attention having to hold the brewer up. Are those cups tasty enough to justify the labor that goes into it? Well, it's similar to kind of a cloth filter, as in you can brew a tasty coffee, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and we don't necessarily believe the cup is amazing. We don't believe it's much better than anything else you can find on the market, whether you use a V60, an April brewer, or anything else really. We get better results with those kind of brewers with less effort. However, this has been really interesting, and it has had us kind of reflect over the way we pour water on coffee, which is always very useful, right? So we're super excited to have tested this new brewer. We recommend all of you to test it as well because it's fun and it's going to teach you about brewing coffee. With that, we want to say thank you guys for watching. Join our Patreon if you want to actually receive one of those brewer, because it turns out we had two, because Tetsu was kind enough to actually send us one after we purchased one. So if you want to get your hands on it and try it, then we'll make sure to send it out to you. Join our Patreon, subscribe to these videos, and with that, have a great day. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.